දැන් මාස 25ක ස්ථාවර තැන්පතු සඳහා 10.75ක අසම සම පොලියක් LB යසෙසුරු.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Monday, the 9th of February 2026. Maritime concerns. Fishermen continue to protest against government's tractor winch ban. Deputy Minister Fisheries pledges discussions after February 27th. Looming strike. Private bus owners threaten nationwide strike over permit cancellation linked to narcotic use by staff. Rent clash. Petitions filed before the Supreme Court challenging protection of Occupants bill withdrawn. Volatile credit. Climate change will impact nation's future credit ratings, Fitch Ratings warns.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Derana News Channel, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. I'm Devindi Nanayakara joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story. The fishermen who initiated a satyagraha campaign opposing the government's ban on the use of tractor-mounted winches for seine net fishing decided to continue their protest today. The decision followed discussions with the President's Director General for Public Relations D. Gamage. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Fisheries Ratna Gamage stated that the government would only hold discussions with the fishermen after the courts deliver a verdict on pertinent legal proceedings.
The satyagraha, launched by a group of seine net fishermen against the government's ban on tractor-mounted winches, entered its 5th consecutive day today. A separate group of winch net fishermen also joined the campaign today, reinforcing opposition to the ban. Fishermen involved in the satyagraha announced that all seine net fishermen would withdraw from fishing activities starting today, citing the government's failure to address their demands. According to reports, fishermen from Tangol have already halted operations, while those in Galle district continue daily fishing. Parliamentarian Rohitha Abegunawardena and former MP Navin Disanayake visited the protest site today. Later, MP Abegunawardena contacted Minister of Fisheries, Aquatic and Ocean Resources Ramalingam Chandrasekhar by telephone.
Hello, අමතුමා මම රෝහිත අබේගුණවර්ධන. අනේ අමතුමා මම මේ ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ අපේ දීවරයෝ ටික දවස් 5ක් වෙනවා. අමතුමා මේකට ඔබතුමා මේ මිනිසුන්ට අහුම්කම් දීමක් කරන්න. ඔබතුමා වෙලාවක් දෙන්න. මේක ලොකු පිනක් මේක. මේ අහිංසක මිනිස්සුනේ. හරි. හරි. අදම දෙන්න අමතුමා. බලමු එයා මුලින් අමතුමත් එක්ක කතා කරමු.
Meanwhile, the protesting fishermen attempted to march towards the presidential secretariat but were blocked by police. The police riot control unit was deployed to manage the area. Following police intervention, 6 fishermen were granted a discussion with the Director General to the President, D. Gamage. However, they reiterated that the satyagraha would continue until their demands are met.
ඇත්තටම එතුමා සාධනීය මේ සම්බන්ධව අසා සිටියා. අපි එතුමාට අපේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න ටික අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරා. ඒකට සාධනීය පිළිතුරක් ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙලා සාකච්ඡා කරලා පත් කරපු කොමිටියත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙලා අපිට අදහස් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නම් කියලා කිව්වා. මේ ස්ථානයෙන් අපි අද ඉවත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි මේක තවදුරටත් කරගෙන යනවා.
Addressing a press briefing at the Ministry of Fisheries today, Deputy Minister Ratna Gamage said the court case filed by the fishermen is scheduled for February 27. He added that the government is prepared to engage in discussions with the fishermen following the court proceedings.
The Minister of Fisheries during the tenure of the Good Governance government in 2015 allowed the use of tractor-mounted winches for 72 seine nets. What actually happens when winches are used to pull seine nets? The seine nets is laid over a distance of over 4 to 5 kilometers and heavy weights are hung below. With the tension, the coral reef, plankton and sea force down below are all pulled to the shore. Mahinda Amarweera and Dilip Vedarachi have actually forced the fishermen into a bottom trawling fishing technique in disguise. The Good Governance government must be held accountable for the matter. We cannot directly comment on the matter at the moment as legal proceedings have already been initiated. We cannot definitely comment on the matter until the 27th of February. We are ready to hold discussions after the court ruling is delivered.
Former Minister of Fisheries Mahinda Amaraweera, who had permitted the use of tractor-mounted winches during the previous government, also commented on the ongoing protest.
When I took the office as the Minister of Fisheries, the European Union had imposed a ban on Sri Lankan fish products. At the time, seine net fishermen held discussions with us, stating that they required over 50 people to put the seine nets, and added the growing shortage of manual labour had caused fishermen to distance themselves from seine net fishing. Accordingly, I held discussions with all officials concerned with the industry and we agreed to permit the usage of winches. At the time, we clearly instructed not to permit winch net fishing in areas with coral reef. Usually, seine nets pulling is not conducted in areas with coral reefs. If seine net fishing is suspended, the price of fish will double. The incumbent Deputy Minister of Fisheries used to obstruct our plans while we were in office. They used to oppose us with the assistance of fishermen. He should hold discussions with those fishermen today as well. The leaders of the incumbent government stated that they would inform the fishermen via text message of where the largest fish population was every morning through a dedicated application. The fishermen are still waiting for that text message.
Central Finance
The Department of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources has clarified that no legal permission has been granted for seine net fishing using tractor-mounted winches. The statement was made at a special government media conference today.
Tractor winches used in seine net fishing are causing significant damage to coastal areas and deep-sea marine life. Repeated movement of these winches along the coast has been observed to harm ecosystems. This method is outdated and cannot be recommended as part of modern fishing technology. In some areas, long stretches of sewage lines have formed. Fishermen who have been part of the seine net industry for generations oppose this practice. In the past, fisheries exports brought substantial foreign revenue with 100 to 135 boxes shipped and around 35 exporters. Today, only 8 to 10 exporters remain, exporting a maximum of 15 boxes. Protests like this risk destroying the industry.
මේ දීවර ආම්පන්න ක්‍රමය මගින් කැස්බෑවුන්ගේ කැදලි ඒ වගේම බිතර විනාශ වීමක් සිදු වෙනවා. පොරල් විශාල පරිසර පද්ධතියක් ගැලවිලාම මේ දැලත් සමග එන්නට ඉඩ තියෙනවා.
දැනට ක්‍රියාකාරී තත්ත්වයේ තියෙනවා මාදල් 827ක වගේ ප්‍රමාණයක් වින්ච් යන්ත්‍ර සවි කරලා ක්‍රියාකාරී තත්ත්වයේ තියෙන මාදල් ප්‍රමාණය 300කටත් වඩා අඩු ප්‍රමාණයක් විදිහට තමයි වාර්තා වෙන්නේ. වින්ච් යන්ත්‍ර භාවිතා කිරීම සඳහා නීතියානුකූලව අවසරයක් අපි ලබා දීලා නැහැ කිසිදු මාදල් හිමියෙකුට. එක්තරා අවස්ථාවකදී 183 දෙනෙකුගේ නාම ලේඛනයක් සඳහා පර්යේෂණ මට්ටමින් යන්ත්‍ර භාවිතා කිරීම සඳහා අවසරයක් ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒක තමයි මේ දිගින් දිගටම ක්‍රියාකාරී තත්ත්වයේ පවතින්නේ.
ඇයි ඒ අවුරුදු 10 ඇතුළත එහෙනම් ඒකට විරුද්ධව ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් නොගත්තා?
දිගින් දිගටම දැනුවත් කිරීම කරලා තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව යම්කිසි අවස්ථාවලදී අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනුණුත් කරලා තියෙනවා.
ඔබතුමා සමන් කර්මාන්ත හිමියන් සමග තියෙන ගනුදෙනුවක ප්‍රතිඵලයක් තමයි මේ තදින් ඉන්නේ කියලා.
එහෙම ගනුදෙනුවක් තියෙනවා නම් එයාට පුළුවන් ඔප්පු කරන්න කියලා මම දීවර අධ්‍යක්ෂ ජෙනරාල්වරයා විසින් දීවර කර්මාන්තයට දාලා සියලුම කර්මාන්ත සමග මම සහයෝගයෙන් වැඩ කරනවා.
වසර 10ක්ම නිශ්ශබ්දව සිටීම මේ අර්බුදේ වැඩි වෙන්න හේතුවක් වුණා නේද?
වසර 10ක් අපි මේක දැනගෙන හිටියා. අපි නිශ්ශබ්දව හිටියේ නෑ. අපි මේ අවුරුද්ද අවසන් වීමට පෙර මේ 1984 මේ හඳුන්වා දීලා තියෙන මාදල් නියෝග මාලාව සංශෝධනය කිරීමට කටයුතු කරනවා.
ඒ අය චෝදනාවක් කරනවා කුහක පරිගැනීමක් ඔබතුමා කරනවා කියලා. මොකක්ද ඒක? ඒකට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න ඕන ඔබතුමා.
ඒ කුහක පරිගැනීම මොකක්ද කියලා කිව්වොත් මම ඒකට උත්තරයක් දෙන්නම්.
කියනවනේ.
ඉතින් ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන එකට
මාධ්‍ය වලින් යනවා.
නෑ ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන එකට උත්තර දෙන්න මම දන්නේ නෑ. මගෙන් ඇහුවත් නිශ්චිත ප්‍රශ්නයක් මම ඒකට උත්තරයක් දෙන්නම්. මොකද කුහක පරිගැනීම කියන එක මම දන්නේ
10 suspects, including Venerable Balangoda Kassapatera, linked to the alleged illegal enshrinement of a Buddha statue in Trinco, were further remanded until February 11th. The High Court adjourned their bail hearing until the same day.
Legal proceedings over the alleged illegal construction and enshrinement of a Buddha statue within Trincomalis coastal protection zone resumed today before Chief Magistrate MSM Samsudin. The case follows the dismissal by the Court of Appeal of a writ filed by Venerable Balangoda Kassapatera and Venerable Kalyanawansati Satera seeking to invalidate their detention. The 10 suspects, including Venerable Balangoda Kassapatera, were produced in court today. State Council informed the magistrate that the Court of Appeal had upheld the remand order issued by the Trincomali Magistrates Court. Defence counsel requested that proceedings be adjourned until the High Court considered the suspect's bail application. During the ensuing High Court hearing, State Counsel sought 2 days to file formal objections. Defence counsel stressed urgency, noting the suspects had been remanded for nearly a month. High Court Judge N.M.M. Abdullah noted that the Magistrates Court lacked authority to grant bail on the charges and the proper submission should have been made earlier. He added the prolonged remand resulted from the defence's procedural error. The High Court adjourned the bail hearing until February 11th, directing preliminary objections to be submitted on that date. The Trinco magistrate confirmed that the Court of Appeal's dismissal of the writ affirmed the legality of the remand order and that the High Court now has jurisdiction over bail. The Criminal Investigation Department has been instructed to investigate allegations of police assault against the suspects. Accordingly, the 10 suspects were further remanded until February 11th.
Petitions filed before the Supreme Court challenging the Protection of Occupants Bill have been withdrawn. The move follows a disclosure that an expert committee will be appointed to review the bill and propose amendments to address concerns raised by the petitioning parties.
The Protection of Occupants Bill, aimed at establishing a legal framework to prevent the arbitrary eviction of tenants from rented properties, was recently tabled in Parliament for approval. The bill sparked widespread controversy, with critics claiming it infringes upon the rights of landlords. Against this backdrop, several parties filed fundamental rights petitions before the Supreme Court, raising concerns over the proposed legislation. Accordingly, 6 such fundamental rights petitions were taken up for consideration by the Supreme Court today. Appearing on behalf of the Attorney General, Additional Solicitor General Sumati Dharmawardena informed court that the government has decided to reconsider the Protection of Occupants Bill. He stated that opinions and suggestions received will be reviewed by an expert committee appointed by the Attorney General, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and the Minister of Justice. A period of 1 month commencing from the 3rd of February has been allocated for the review process. The committee will also consider concerns raised in the petitions before court. The expert committee is required to submit a report proposing necessary amendments to the bill, which will then be forwarded to the Minister of Justice. The Additional Solicitor General further informed court that the Justice Minister expects to present an amended bill to Parliament for approval in the near future. In light of these developments, councillors appearing on behalf of the petitioners, including President's Counsel Faisal Mustafa, informed court that there was no need to proceed with the petitions. Accordingly, the Supreme Court granted permission to withdraw the relevant petitions.
And now let's take a look at the views presented in the political arena today.
Minister of Public Administration, Provincial Councils and Local Government Chandana Beratna yesterday stated that the Provincial Council elections will have to be postponed due to Cyclone Ditwa. That is a ridiculous statement. This election can be held next month if the government wills it. They are afraid of holding the Provincial Council polls. A report of a secret survey conducted by the government was handed over to the President 2 weeks ago. According to the findings of the survey, the government's vote bank has dwindled down to less than 25%, 24.7% to be precise. This is why the government intends to postpone the election by citing made-up reasons. If the Provincial Council election is held, the government will not be able to secure power in any Provincial Council. This is the bitter truth. However, we are appalled by the fact that 25% of the voters support this unfaithful anti-national government. The CID and FCID have launched investigations into many persons of interest. Investigations have entered its final stages now. Court cases are being filed. Those blinded by illusions must pay keen attention to developments in court. To contest the post, they must first not be incarcerated. The general public will witness how the judiciary will administer justice and fulfill its responsibility. By threatening people with arrest, the government attacks the rule of law and not the Rajpaksha camp. Despite whatever may happen, people expected the government to be loyal and for it to keep its promises. Unfortunately, they are neither loyal or competent. Sustaining our allegations against Rajapaksa is a procedure that requires judicial intervention. It is not something that can be done as we please. Everything in this regard must occur off the back of court orders and judgments. It is a matter with a legal dimension which will happen in due course. We do not know what is happening at the moment. The justice system as well as the police are independent. We do not require state of emergency. This period of emergency is being extended due to signs of potential protests and strikes in the near future. The government requires a state of emergency to quash these impending protests. The president intervenes in every sector to resolve persisting issues. In this context, the president might as well dissolve the cabinet and solely take up all the power. What is the point of ministers?
දැන් මේ රජයට එරෙහිව මේ දවස්වල උද්ඝෝෂණ ලක් යනවා. ඔබතුමා කොහොමද දකින්නේ? මොකක්ද ඒක හේතුව?
ඔකට අලාල සාසරේ කිව්වනේ.
Minister Lal Kanta explained this before. I too have the same response. These developments are farcical. A hunger strike was previously a measure of last resort. However, in today's context, hunger strikes have become as common as having breakfast. All of the actions have taken a ridiculous turn. I believe there are things worth considering and things that aren't.
මම හිතන්නේ ඒවා සලකන්න ඕන දේවලුත් තියෙනවා, නොසලකන්න දේවලුත් තියෙනවා.
Welcome back to First at 9. Now the chairman of the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, Gamana Vijayaratne, warns of a nationwide bus strike if the government moves to cancel road permits of public transport buses over alleged drug use by employees. The warning comes in response to a statement by Transport Minister Bimal Ratnayake, who says bus owners will be held accountable for the conduct of their drivers and conductors.
Chairman of the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association, Gamana Vijayaratne, vowed to bring all private bus services across the country to a complete halt if the government revokes passenger transport permits citing drug use by employees. He was responding to comments made yesterday by Minister of Transport Bimal Ratnayake.
Bus owners shoulder the burden of preventing drivers from consuming narcotics. Bus owners are expected to know if their drivers and conductors are using narcotics. We warn owners not to allow such practices as it could result in the revocation of their road permits. Road permits are issued with specific conditions that must be strictly followed. Driving under the influence of alcohol is already prohibited under existing laws, and those laws should be enforced. However, the government must not act in an arbitrary or despotic manner like King Kakille. The minister's statement amounts to a violation of fundamental rights. During the customs container controversy, 325 containers were released under the direct instructions of Minister Bimal. Did the minister resign then? The same law was not enforced in the case involving MP Asoka Ranwala. If necessary, we will demonstrate our collective strength by bringing all buses across the country to a halt.
500 metric tons of rice donated by the government of Myanmar to provide relief to people affected by Cyclone Ditwa were handed over to Trade Minister Vasantha Samarasinghe at the Colombo Port Complex today.
The consignment donated by the government of Myanmar includes 500 metric tons of rice and medical supplies. The supplies are expected to be used to provide relief to people affected by Cyclone Ditwa. The consignment was handed over to Trade Minister Vasantha Samarasinghe at the Colombo Port Complex today.
When Myanmar was severely struck by the earthquake in 2025, Sri Lanka, not only the government but also the people, they support Myanmar. When Sri Lanka met with the Cyclone Ditwa, we stand solidarity with the people of Sri Lanka.
With that, here's a look at other local news in brief.
The Colombo High Court has set March 14th for the next hearing in the case filed by Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption against former Minister Kelly Rambukwala and two others. The Bribery Commission alleges that nearly 1 million rupees were lost to the Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation during the 2015 presidential election period when 600 GI pipes were purchased for political purposes, while Rambukwala served as Minister of Mass Media. In another legal development, the Colombo High Court today postponed the hearing of the case filed against Yoshita Rajapaksa, son of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, and his grand-aunt Daisy Forrest under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. The hearing has been rescheduled for April 24th. State Counsel Oswald Pereira informed the court that the special medical report on whether Daisy Forrest is mentally fit to attend trial has not yet been received. He requested that the case be adjourned until the report is submitted. The Attorney General filed the case under 3 charges, alleging that the defendants violated the Prevention of Money Laundering Act by depositing over 59 million rupees believed to be legally earned into 3 fixed deposit accounts at private banks between 2009 and 2013. Meanwhile, the National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection submitted a letter to the Ministry of Trade requesting restrictions on coconut oil exports or relief measures for the public. Chairman Ranjit Vithanage said equalizing taxes on coconut oil and other imported oils could push up prices of locally produced coconut oil. He also stressed that virgin coconut oil should be sold at a lower price to protect consumers.
Welcome back. Now, in your business news, the Asian Development Bank has appointed Shannon Colin as its new country director for Sri Lanka. Colin assumed duties in Colombo today. She brings over 26 years of professional experience, including 13 years with the Asian Development Bank. Her expertise span investment project operations, policy engagement, and knowledge in working with the areas in energy, climate and environment, air quality, public health, and energy, food, water nexus. Prior to her appointment to Sri Lanka, Colin served as country director of ADB's Mongolia resident mission. In a statement today, she said that as Sri Lanka continues on its path to recovery, the Asian Development Bank remains firmly committed to supporting the country in rebuilding and strengthening its resilience. Meanwhile, former country director Takafumi Kodono has been appointed as country director for Papua New Guinea. Fitch Ratings warn that climate change will increasingly shape how countries are rated for creditworthiness in the coming decades. To track these risks, Fitch has introduced Climate Vulnerability Signals, a tool that identifies countries most exposed to climate-related threats and informs future credit ratings.
Climate Vulnerability Signal or Climate.vs assigns each country a score from 0 to 100 for the period from 2030 to 2050. The higher the score, the greater the exposure to climate risk. These include physical risk like floods, heat waves and storms, as well as transition risks such as declining fossil fuel demand. According to Fitch, about half of rated countries are expected to have a Climate.vs score of 50 or more by 2050, suggesting climate risk could trigger a credit rating downgrade. Only 6% of countries may reach a very high score of 70 by 2050, which could imply a 3-notch downgrade. The most vulnerable countries include major fossil fuel exporters and small nations highly exposed to physical climate damage. In the near term, leading up to 2035, climate risks are less likely to affect ratings, with only 7% of countries having a score of 50 or higher. However, Fitch expects risk to rise sharply after 2035 due to falling fossil fuel demand, increasing global temperatures, and more frequent and severe extreme weather events. The agency emphasized that actual rating outcomes may differ from Climate.vs scores. The final impact will depend on the severity of the climate change, technological advances, and how well governments adapt and mitigate climate risks. Fitch says Climate.vs is particularly useful for long-term investors, highlighting risks that extend beyond the short-term focus of traditional sovereign credit ratings.
The Colombo bourse closed in negative territory today as a result of price losses in counters such as John Keel's Holdings, Senkadagala Finance and Colombo Dockyard. The benchmark ASPI declined by 0.20% to close at 23,754.26, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 decreased by 0.09% to end the day at 6,608.68. Market turnover was 6.31 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 1.4 billion rupees. Up next, we have Mushraf Ibrahim from Capital Alliance in our next segment, Markets in View.
The all-share price index closed the week at 23,801.96 points. Similarly, the S&P SL20 index declined to 6,614.72 points compared to 6,641.15 points in the prior week. Market activity, however, remained robust, with total equity turnover amounting to LKR 33.61 billion. Average daily turnover stood at approximately LKR 8.4 billion, supported by sustained participation from domestic investors. Trading volumes moderated, with 1.18 billion shares changing hands during the week, while the total number of trades declined to 178,251.
With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest updates around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
From across the nation and around the world, this is Sri Lanka's #1 news source, Ada Derana.